Hey y'all, this is your girl BMORE and welcome to the Dummies Cauldron.
Hey, this is your girl BMORE, and today we are going to go over the rising signs or sun, moon, and rising signs of the full moon that occurred about 4 to 5 days ago. Okay, as we talked about before, there will be moral decay, and we have to understand how to balance our generosity while also still being emotionally brave, while still being bold and open and ready to explore certain things. Some people, they're going to get caught up in gender wars, manipulation, people pleasing, and there's nothing we can do for that. Moment of silence for people with low self-esteem. Okay, it's nothing we can do for that. All we can do is have some self-respect and learn whatever lessons we need to learn about having healthy relationship dynamics with other people. Okay, because people only treat us how we let them. Okay, so for this reading, this is for, again, sun, moon, and risings. This is in order. You're going to look for your rising sign, and then you're going to look for your sun sign, and then your moon sign. This is already calculated for all three. Let's say by chance you don't know what your rising sign is, you can put your information into a birth chart calculator, particularly a tropical birth chart calculator. You are going to look for your sun placement. So if you look over in this description box in the corner, it says planet positions. You see in this little corner, it says the sun. That tells you what it is. So the sun over here in this little tab over to the right, you're going to see that it has a sun and it has the moon. So the sun is in Gemini, the moon is in Sag. If you go down to house positions, it says AC, it says the ascendant. Now this doesn't really have a time. This is where the planet's general positions are. But if you go down to the house positions on this panel on the side where it has the birth date, the time, it has planet positions, houses on the right, you will see that it says ascendant. Now I will make sure I drop a link down for this chart calculator. I will make sure that it's in the description. Now, if you don't know your time of birth, you will not be able to calculate an ascendant properly. Okay. Now, if you are a person that applies to, for whatever reason, why you don't have a time of birth or you're unsure, what you're going to do is you're going to focus on your sun and your moon. That will still give you information that is important and what you need. So, sun, moon, and rising. That is what you are going to listen to. Okay, great. Now, for the first sign, we are going to do Aries. And so Aries, we are seeing a lot of themes around, talked about it earlier, but you guys have Saturn, Neptune, and Chiron in the first house. So the themes will be restriction, inspiration, and healing or processing. And so you guys are really going over some really interesting changes. You guys really you're moving into things where you're trying to initiate or start things. Maybe you're inspired to do things, but you want to build structure. And that will be what I would first off advise to you. Your first house lord, which will be Mars, is 5 signs away. Yeah, we talked about this earlier, about the first being in the fifth, how there's more of a push for exploration, creativity, fun, and socializing. Now, for the sun Aries, this may be in a placement because the sun is in the last pegs of Gemini, but you guys are smart. You focus on money. You're generous. Could be bossy, fighting with siblings. But fighting with siblings, family, or neighbors. I'm gonna be quite honest. Like that's just I'm gonna be for real. That's a very Gemini sun thing to do. But these are a lot of major themes here. With the Aries moon people, there can be great concentrations on religion, going after a great career, having things around generosity, your father, and children, or forms of creativity. This full moon, we see the mutual reception, which means that two planets are having a conversation between the moon and Jupiter, so they give to each other. So we see two things. We can see that a parent gave you possibly a solid foundation in religion and philosophy. Maybe a higher education is important during this time. Parents can also maybe be foreign or strange cultural influences in your youth. Maybe you live far from your place of birth. You can be curious about foreign places. You might even collect objects from these foreign places as well. There's also a push to own land in faraway places. Now, for people who have hard aspects, and this is very subjective, only you will know this, maybe you are struggling to live up to the high standards of your parents, and I see that possibly being a Gemini, not Gemini, I'm sorry, an Aries thing. The other thing is, outside of just living in a foreign country, you can be interested in foreign or unusual things. You also could have the possibility, to, get along with people even if they are of a different background. So there's interest in foreign cultures, but just people who are just different, they think different, or they had a different background from you. Now, for some people who may be struggling under this full moon, we will see that there can be issues establishing estates, establishing, certain forms of legacies, etc. I can also see for some Aries, there can be some trouble in being jailed for breaking the law. Maybe even being attached to the religion or philosophy or the upbringing of your family. And really, unless it's Uranus aspecting this placement or attached to your 9th house, I would say overall there is a strong level of free thinking, especially if Uranus is attached. But maybe we are thinking more about religions and the things that our family taught us and our morals, etc. This new moon will occur in your 9th house, and so you can have issues with your in-laws. You can have issues with the law, like I said, the lawbreaker, issues with traveling. There can be delays. Things can get canceled. You can also see issues stem around the father. I would really tell you to watch out for promises and legal disputes. The promises can either be from you or from other people, but for whatever reason, they may not be able to hold these promises. There can also be issues around religion and philosophy. And for the most part, trying to understand what you actually believe in. And this can prove to be very helpful and a resource for you at this time. So if you're a person who maybe goes back and maybe you fellowship with a church that you were at before, or maybe you just revisit some of these things of like how your parents raised you and their philosophies, and maybe you see that, maybe my parents was right, and maybe that's something I need to tap into. Because of this mutual reception, we also see that what you really need to learn through this relationship, Aries, is you have to learn some inner happiness, some inner sensuality. There can also be an indulgent nature, many friends, themes around having a great mom, and just being generous and open-minded in general. This helps us to really pay attention to our 4th house, our relationships, our early education, real estate, what brings us comfort. This may even stem around your nephew, particularly the sister's son, your sister's son, your maternal uncle, your mom's brother. Also things around the heart, digestion, and early childhood. The other thing that we have to pay attention to is philosophy and religion. Are we fair-minded? Are we good teachers? Do we have good teachers? Are we well educated? Maybe we feel more prosperous now. Maybe happiness can come by way of children and the youth. Maybe we're more generous and well-known. This really stems around deeds of virtue and what you find virtuous. This also stems around identities around the father, medicine, how lucky we are, worship, duty, what is our duty, and maybe the area of the body is the thighs. Okay, so a lot of your themes for these next couple of weeks, Aries, is really going to center around your upbringing, how you were raised and what you believe in, and how that maybe impacts the home. So I also see a lot of times for people with this type of placement, I see a lot of times that they can also be kind of famous lawbreakers. You know, they always want to do their own things. Now, they can make exceptional teachers just as much as they're lawbreakers, but maybe the rules that we're breaking isn't the rules that we were brought up with. You know, maybe they are the rules. I don't know. But Aries are more prone at this point to just bust out of conformity, and there's a push and pull between how they're brought up, and you guys have to explore, is this really what you really want to do? Okay. Now, you also understand that your home life will always be important, you know, no matter where you lay your head, wherever your home may be, but you also need a home to recharge. You know, it's very important that you have somewhere to rest and recover. Depending on your own personal depending on your own personal charts and planets here, it really will determine how you view the home, and that can indicate, you know, whether it's a difficult childhood or an easy childhood. Nonetheless, you know, we really have to examine how our parents played a role in our lives, and maybe if we can be even successful in the place or the location of our births, you know. So how well our morals sit with how well we are at home. Like, does my beliefs merge well with my home, my family? It may or may not, you know. But good luck, Aries. All right, now for my Tauruses. So right now, Venus is still sitting in your first house, and Uranus is sitting in your first house as well. And so here we're all about our appearances. We're all about our attitudes. We're beaming with self-motivation, self-interest. I'm gonna be honest, Taurus. At the worst, you can be egotistical. You be all about grooming, fashion, but you really center around your wishes and your ideas. They're very important to you now. So I will just say this. Your conditions that you create, good or bad, are directly tied to whatever you personally did at this time. And maybe this is a good time for you to go back and listen to Venus and Taurus. But yeah, it's directly tied to how you're moving and what you did at this time. Okay. So you can have a happy upbringing, good parents, family. If not, you will be able to overcome poor upbringings or poor dynamics with your parents, and then you're happy. This also centers around sports and competition. Now, we talked about before your 10th house lord being in your first, so you're really all about business, getting into the limelight, and working hard. You know, the only thing I'll say for Taurus is just because you work hard doesn't mean it makes sense. Okay. So I do respect the value of hard work, but you know, working harder doesn't mean working smarter. So that's something that we have to understand. So your 6th house lord is in the first because Venus rules 2 places. It would be your 6th house and your first. And so we see that work is very important to you. But we also can possibly get illnesses because the 6th house is disease, is illnesses. So we may trigger illnesses depending how we handle our work, how we handle working. Are we overworking ourselves? Are we not taking care of our bodies? The other thing is we also could possibly be our own worst enemy. We also can possibly participate in what we consider gossip, slander, etc., because the 6th house is seen as a house of intimacy. Okay, these are people also who is associated with being a public servant or politicians. We work for the people, we work on the behalf of others. All right, so your 4th is in the 2nd, and what I will say is that this creates a very modest energy where it does help to keep some of Taurus has some other things where they can struggle with, like ego and megalomania, but it does really help with this. And so there can be some more modesty, which can be very helpful. Now there can also be learning problems Maybe you have to work hard for money. Maybe there's issues with expressing yourself. There's generally money problems in general for a twofold reason. But I would say in general, just try to be responsible. I know you're really trying to focus on saving up and stuff like that, but just be responsible. Okay. I also see that because the 3rd and the 8th are having some relationships, there may be little willpower, weak health, particularly maybe as a child, or maybe you remember sometime you were sick as a child. Our intelligence can be strong now. There can be issues around the mother, and maybe an overall lack of confidence, Now, this typically indicates some type of loss or issue around a sibling. Maybe the sibling, you guys are distant. Maybe you lose the sibling relationship. Some people, unfortunately, their siblings are no longer around for whatever reason. But again, this makes a curious nature. These people are curious about life and death and research mysteries in life, the occult. I will say you guys can tell dirty jokes and you guys really don't like small talk. It's weird. Like, you like saying these dirty jokes, but you don't like small talk. You don't like idle chatter. You prefer more deeper conversations. Particularly if you have like Mercury, Saturn, Pluto around these placements. The other thing is that you can also be attracted to challenging games, and so we have to be careful that we're not intentionally or unintentionally drawn to manipulation, because that can be seen as a challenging game. Seeing people as pawns and trying to get them into doing certain things that we want them to do. So that could be a way of troublemaking unintentionally. So try to stay out of troublemaking. Try to stay out of too much manipulation. If you're having fun and playing, that's fine, but not too much. They also can see that we may even see the Taurus express some of these 8th house things in more artistic ways. And so maybe they do like a painting, a song talking about the 8th house matters. So 8th house matters can deal with, like we said, the mysteries, occult, but also sex, getting other people to support you, etc. Overall, the life of a party tells great stories, but also maybe the voice is seen to have more sexual appeal these days. Now here we see that relationships with siblings and relatives go through phases, and this is something that we have to understand. Relationships go up and down. Maybe our younger siblings are unstable. We can be good and strong in communication and artistic skills. We have to learn frugality, and we have a strong mind at this time. The other thing that we have to learn is, how well do we work in partnerships? How well can we depend on other people's power? How well can we depend on our coworkers and other employees and colleagues for success? If not, this creates professional ups and downs. This overall centers around good health and what is the importance of good health. This full moon will occur in your 8th house, so it deals with expenses, insurance, income, taxes. I would tell you to avoid loans. There may be more audits now, and decline money requested that sounds way too good to be true. I will also tell you to talk money matters with your partner. So if you guys are in a very committed relationship, or this is even a business partnership, this will be a good time where you can bring up money matters and try to get to the bottom of things. Okay. So what is the main focus? It will be the 3rd and the 8th house. This is where we have to learn emotional tenacity while also not being too indulgent. Okay. So what happens when we see the 8th and the 8th? Many people who have this placement tend to have, a sex appeal or a public sexual image. So they're seen as like glamorous, charismatic, etc. It also can make you, like I said, interested in the mysteries of life and occult dealings, etc. Very strange occurrences, Now I have seen people, because the 8th house makes hard aspects to the 1st. Maybe you're just not interested in sex at all. And for some people, this might show up as like celibacy or asexuality. Again, it really depends on the person's chart and how they internalize with things. Maybe you don't want to adjust yourselves for your partner or their sexual need, or even your own sexual needs. Whether that being said, there can also be things where the whole aura around sex can seem exaggerated in nature, For some people, they like that, and for some people, they feel like it's overwhelming. I would tell you to be careful with filling out taxes and any paperwork, because you have it where they will catch everything. So if something is mismanaged, you should just go check it out and just be sure that, all your credit, all your IRS and all this other stuff is properly noted. Okay. Now, the other thing is we're looking at the third and the third. Many prominent writers have this placement. So the writing and the words, whether written or spoken, are very strong. You really want to express your ideas and are quite assertive about your opinions and beliefs. Now, again, depending on your personal chart, you really have to learn to control your tendencies to be too outspoken and opinionated. It's good that we know the girls, the boys or whatever, they understand how they feel about everything. But saying that all the time isn't always appropriate. If we go into someone's party and they have on a dress or they have their cakes and stuff, whatever they like, you feel the need to voice how you like or don't like their clothes or how you like or don't like their cake, that's weird. It's not your party. Who cares if you like it? You see how that's getting weird, where we like bashing people over the head about our opinions and I need to say how I feel about something. We have to make sure we're not overstepping, because just as much as self-expression is important to you, so is it to other people. You don't want to end up being something that in theory you might be opposed to, because you don't want people to tell you to be quiet. You don't want people to tell you that you can't say what you want to say. Okay. Now, usually you do have a good sense of direction and can be very in tune and present in the moment. But that is what I would really recommend for Taurus to pay attention to. You don't want nobody to hush you up. You don't hush nobody else up. Okay. Good luck, Taurus. Alrighty, for my Geminis, the sun is in the first house, so we are very consciously aware about everything that's going on. Hopefully, the last full moon, you guys were able to check about certain things that went on in the last 6 months. This time, Gemini, any type of secrets or hidden information has bubbled up to the surface at this point. So this month, you really could have been dealing with secret information or things that you did not know about just coming out. Okay. These days, we're more aggressive. They can be carelessness, impulsiveness, ambition. You can be proud and in good health, but maybe impatient. Okay. Everything is about self-expression. Maybe you're more romantic and passionate now. Maybe you can get money by way of partnerships. Some people have this. They can be in more than one relationship. I don't know what y'all doing, Gemini, but I would say generally the relationships can be successful, even if they last or don't. I also see a rounder face. So maybe Geminis realize that their face is getting like rounder. Maybe, I don't know, maybe they're getting chubby. Who knows? But we also see that money is center stage. Your earning capacity can be enhanced or hindered by a partner. We see that the public and publicity plays a major important role into your earnings, whether it's sales, and whatever products that you can put out. Self-esteem is really tied to your mates and partners at this time. The more you learn about establishing one-to-one relationships and understanding others' needs, you can better understand your needs. And so however well your relationships do or don't go, it makes you to understand yourself better, helps you to understand your values and what you prioritize. So, if the relationship did or didn't work out, you can say, look, I cared about the person, but our values weren't on the same wavelength, or I cared about the person, but we didn't want the same things out of life. It doesn't make anyone a good or a bad person. And sometimes people are just bad people, who knows? But, your relationship scars really help things to become full circle at this time. Your earnings can also involve legal affairs. Maybe you make money around the idea of court. Maybe you make money through contracts and agreements. You can be well-spoken, smart, maybe deal with writing. Making money by way of smarts. You have your own established values. You pick what is right for you. Okay. You don't care about convention or what is expected. You be very money motivated. And a lot of the time you like working for money and you spend a lot of time working for money. I would tell you, Gemini, What is valuable? You should figure out what is valuable to you. You can also work in fields related to finances and money. If it's positively aspected in your chart, the flow of money is easy. If it's hard aspected, where you're having some either malefics or some other things come in, maybe there are money issues, but what we see also with money issues and there's not being enough money to go around, they be also a lack of values and maybe a waste of talent. So Gemini, if you're a Gemini person, sun, moon, and rising, if you notice there's not enough money going around, I feel like my pockets are empty. Why don't I have enough funds to cover XYZ? Okay, so what we notice is that maybe you lack values or you're wasting your talents. You're talkative, you love food, you're educated, you can earn a good living, and you're very eloquent. Okay? But your money is directly related to how much of your talent you are or aren't wasting. And if you don't have enough money to cover your finances, figure out what your talents are and try to take advantage of them properly. So, because this is the second house of finances and the seventh house of relationship, you could be a person that marries for money or security. I'm not judging, but it's very possible. You can also be a person who marries someone, or you're in a relationship with someone who shares your same views. So you partner with someone exactly for the premise of sharing the same viewpoints in life. You can also earn in law or in face-to-face confrontation. Maybe you're a boxer, maybe you debate people publicly. I don't know. You can also earn large salaries due to popularity in your public appeal. You can also earn money with your partner. If it's well integrated, you marry someone who earns well or is good with money. The partner also may inherit something as well, Gemini. Your partner may earn something as well. Now, the other thing is your Jupiter also rules your 10th house as well. So you also want a public career or a partner or your spouse to do your career with you. We'll talk more about this with Jupiter in Cancer. You also could just earn a lot more finances from your career in general. So what are the main themes of this full moon? It's all about compromise. We have to listen to others, we have to be open to other people's viewpoints. We can't only be in our own world now. The other thing is that we can have people oppose our plans, which is very hard to deal with. So you want to do something, they want to do something else, and compromise is very, very hard. But again, the more you learn about the relationships, the more you understand what your needs are. If you can't compromise with this person, maybe this relationship is just too much for you. If they're not compromising with you, we have to get to the bottom. Are we selfish? Are they selfish? Do you need more room to expand? Do you need to diversify certain things? This is stuff that we have to pay attention to. We also see that themes around marriage and engagements or promises are delayed. Contracts are delayed. People promise you something, you want to do something, and then for whatever reason, it's delayed. Okay. Now, we also see that you can be well off, wealthy, educated, sensual. This can also prompt positivity through the family background. So maybe more positive themes come up through family background. You're well spoken and have a great speaking voice at this time. There's overall a friendly, popular attitude. You can be well respected, generous, well liked, and it'll make good marriages and good partnerships, which is why when people don't compromise with you, we can take it more personal than normal. So what is the essence of these two houses, the second house and then the seventh house? So let's look at the strength of the mutual reception with the second and the second and the seventh and the seventh. Okay. So seventh and the seventh, again, you really identify with your partner. You seek meaningful and enduring relationships. That's why we take it so hard when there's like a compromise or the relationships fall through. If we're not using this in a positive way, you may go from one partner and one person to the other looking for gratification. And we may also see we're looking for quantity but not quality in the people we interact with. This also can indicate a need for an involvement in the public, particularly due to public praise and approval. Okay? This may even put you in public leadership in some way or capacity. Right? So we have to understand what our relationships are and why did we get with people to begin with. Is it for praise and approval from crowds in the audience? Now, the other thing is we have second in the second, which deals with values, money, and early childhood experiences or immediate family. Much of your security is also related to your own talents and resources. The sooner you realize that material possessions are no solution to any problems that you encounter, the easier it will be for you to establish a healthy sense of values. You are able to earn money through your own industry and your own efforts, and you may do so much in life. Your feet are planted solidly on the ground, regardless of how scattered or idealistic you may be in other areas of your life. When it comes to making money, you understand it, you get it. And so maybe we struggle between trying to partner with other people for resources versus using our own resources, our own strength to really establish ourselves. Hopefully, Gemini, we can figure out what we need to do. Maybe you don't need other people as much as you think you do. Okay, and maybe that's why the compromise is so hard, it's so deafening at this time. Maybe you realize your inner strength and you don't need as many people as you think you do. Okay, good luck, Gemini. Alrighty, for my Cancer risings, you have Jupiter and Mercury in the first house. I did go over Mercury being in Cancer, so you should check out the weekly roundup, the last one I did, or the one I did last week. You have your third house Lord in your first, so you feel like you must express your opinions and ideas, never elucidate words, but at the worst you can be gossipy and chattery. There can also be a lot of talks about local politics, siblings, relatives, neighbors, friends. You can be fond of travel, work, and also possibly work with your hands in general. But there's never a loss of having to talk about yourself, especially since we have more subconscious urges to explore ourselves. You know, we're more attractive now. We have a stronger constitution. But we also see that work is important to us now. And if it's not properly utilized, Cancer, we can also make ourselves sick because we want to serve other people. So there should be appropriate boundaries around work and how much work we do, and making sure we're not working ourselves till we're sick or the energy materializes as being sick. You also have Jupiter in the first, and so there's something about your philosophy that has to be your own. You don't want to hesitate in making that known either. So self-expression is everywhere. You want to experience your own philosophy, but then you also want to tell people about what your views are in life. You may seek out education, particularly a good education. You may explore ideas via teaching. So, you know, if you are already educated or you already have strong ideas, you may start to teach them to people. This also is an indicator of a very strong religious nature. You may become more ascetic, you know, more religious, or live like what we call like a pious lifestyle, almost like a priest. You know how the priest, like, you know, refrains from, you know, too many worldly pleasures. You may start to do that. You may be attracted to sports or maybe even the legal profession, and maybe even possibly a lawbreaker. Those last three things probably depends on how your chart is set up, your personal chart especially. We also see the inverse, and so we see that work, you're going to want to work, but it really depends if it's willing or graciously. You know, we might take on work and think we're gracious and then regret it later. And so this was centered around diet, health, and hygiene. People at this point will either be very neat or very messy or chaotic. Again, sports are very important, but habits are even more important than that. The health problems will occur if we are not living up to our challenges or we struggle with proper discipline. You can also use the working energy properly, where we don't see diseases pop up at all. Like we're not being too all over the place, because sometimes we can see this pop up as issues with the mother, fighting with coworkers, tummy issues, etc. So maybe we're getting into it with your coworkers. We have issues with our mom because the sixth house deals with slander, competitors, all of those types of things. So what is the main thing? Okay, so this transit, we find that work environment is linked to our well-being, and gossip and rumors may seep out. They might bubble up. There may be an attempt for someone to sabotage you now or play the blame game. It's good to keep information to yourself. Okay, so if you didn't start off with keeping things to yourself before, Cancers might have learned a very important but powerful lesson about everyone isn't your friend. And sometimes for the Cancer, it might be even your own family, unfortunately. What are the main points that Cancer have to learn? That they have a strong character, they have a strong physical constitution, but they can also be very emotional. They can be very enthusiastic, hence the talking and telling your business. You guys also can be very attractive at this time, but there is a split mindset, that kind of goes on with you. You can work well with the public, you're passionate. On the other end, you're very successful, and the success will come by overcoming your adversities, overcoming enemies and obstacles. There can be a lethargicness, a tiredness, cleverness, but overall excessiveness. But you, like I said, you're a great worker and you're very charming. Don't let people steamroll you. They don't have the right to do that. Learn to stand up and get a backbone. Cancers, you don't deserve that. So the main themes are going to be about the first and the second house. The first house, we have to be self-involved. We have to be self-motivated. The good and the bad comes from our own efforts if we do this properly. It's better if we are if we messed up, it's better if we mess up from our own efforts than having people crash our course and then we have to clean up the mess from other people, who don't wish us any well. But really focus on yourself, your own image, focus on your own interests and your own ideas. Yes, we have to be careful about being egotistical, but being self-motivated will actually stop a lot of this, because there's a desire to serve and help other people, but we may be avoiding being self-interested. The other thing is we have to realize that, if we didn't have a healthy childhood and we aren't content, maybe these things also stem around not checking certain behaviors that may have been taught or stemming from childhood. So we need to understand that some of these things are learned, and if we learn them, we can unlearn them. Okay, just as much as easy you pick it up, you can put the crap down. Okay. Now the other thing is that you may be a workaholic, because you also have the sixth house going in over here, which could also be an issue with the disease that we talked about. There may be too much tension producing here, and you may fall into poor habits. You're not sleeping enough, you're not eating enough or eating proper things, you're not taking care of your physical body. The grooming, the physical care may fall inappropriately. You may become a loner or give into sickness. And so we make sure we have time to socialize with people who actually like us and love us. In a well-integrated chart, this is also typical for a pet lover, people who works with animals, people who, do things with animals, etc. But we make sure that we have good habits. We are a hard worker, but you don't want to be to the point where you're not taking care of yourself. Things are going haywire, because sometimes it's better to, sometimes people can get lucky and they can recover their health, but there's a lot of times where we push ourselves too hard and certain things just don't go back. We're too harsh, we're too abusive on our bodies, and the things just don't go back to how they used to. So Cancers, please don't do that. Take care of yourself. Check all of these rumors and gossip, people hating on you. It may be from your family, and unfortunately for some people, it may be from their moms. I prayers to y'all and yours. But don't let people play you. I don't care if it's your family or your mom. No one has the right to be disrespectful. Okay? Everyone has to keep their manners in their place. Everyone behave and be on their best behavior, because if you're off of your best behavior, they will be with the quickness to let you know that. The last thing I will say, Cancers right now still kind of got this whole behind the scenes and stealth thing kind of going on. And maybe you have a little bit of a lack of confidence and poor eyesight. So again, use this time to really make sure your health is good. You see things properly. And it's a little bit hard to tell who likes you and who doesn't, but good luck, Cancers. Okay. Alrighty, now for my Leos, you guys still have things where your parents are prime and center, they're impactful, and your background is very important to you now as well. You're still a daring risk taker whose decisions, if they're not careful and we're acting without common sense, can definitely put us into more danger, Leo. And depending on who our friends are, they really shape a lot for us. They might even be asking us to do a lot of shaping and giving up and showing up for a lot of things as well. We see a lot of things around secret love affairs and secret meetings and partnerships. And that really depends on whether you enjoy them and want to keep them. Who knows? That's up to you with these secret rendezvous. You may shy away from romance altogether and feel like it's kind of icky or childish. I don't know. That's your business, Leo. We also see pleasure by way of solitude. You don't want to be bothered with people. We can see a desire for deep research into the past. What did I mess up? What did I do wrong? That may help you because you have been moving a little bit sloppy, Leo. If you want to check out the previous videos, I talked about the full moons, the new moons, etc., the weekly updates, the weekly roundups. Leos have not been moving correct. They've been very, what's the saying? Hell may care, and with little common sense. All right. There can be misplaced energy that can lead to sorrow or kind of some disappointments related to our children or working with children, lovers, creativity. There can also be some confinement due to gambling. So maybe we go to jail for gambling. Confinement, we have to hide. We're gambling away our lives, our money. We're gambling our emotions and relationships. Overall, this is good for creative energy. This is happening in the 5th house that brings satisfaction, usually by way of children and other relationships like romance, and other social engaging activities like creativity, sports, and other leisure activities. Our children may need more extra care at this time, or our creations may need extra care or friends. People can also upset social plans or cause issues with romance and also conflicts with other friends as well. We can overall see a lack of physical activity. Remember, we're in solitude, we're hiding. We can be more reflective than normal, more like a sponge, and then also reactive. We're very emotional and it's hard to keep things straight. We have issues with friends. Now, we can be very optimistic. We can be good at investments. We can be dramatic, talented, and in strong positions of politics and government. Again, maybe we're still unhappy with our children. Maybe we're putting too much pressure or burdens on him or her, Now, what are the themes? We have the themes of the 5th house and the 12th house. So let's talk about them in their positions of power or domicile. So the 12th and the 12th and the 5th and the 5th, right? So what happens when the 12th is in the 12th and the 5th is in the 5th house? So the 12th and the 12th gives you an innate strength or inner strength that you can draw on whenever you need it. You may not always understand your subconscious, but when the shit hits the fan, you are ready to instinctively take care of things. You already know. You might not get it on any other time, but when people start running, you take off running too. Okay. Some people also find inspirations in their beliefs. So tapping into your subconscious, what your hidden beliefs are, your dreams, your fantasies, and that may be inspiring to you as well at this time. Now, for the 5th being in the 5th, this really depends on your personal chart. However, you really can become a creative genius, especially in the fields of art, composing, performing music. You may find it, again, difficult to settle down in one area of expertise. But you're very socially oriented. You really like and need appreciation and approval. Therefore, you often go on stage or you do things where people can offer opinions. Whether or not you actually like performing, I don't know. Children also are very important. Either you are going to be very centered around children or you just really don't want to be bothered or care about children at all. Okay. maybe you make products for children, I don't know, but most of the time when I see people, the children are important. They're very strong in how they feel about the children. Either they really want to have them, they want to make something about children, or they're like, oh, I'm not a child person at all. Notice it's like a very strong attitude about them. They understand very easily. The other thing is, because the 5th is in the 5th, it could double down on that venture thing that I was talking about earlier with you being more risk taking that can put you in danger. For some people with more challenging aspects and they have Leo placements, it may push you further into risk taking, and you may be even more attracted to even more risk taking. This placement also can give an overall love of gambling, and if it's not well integrated into the chart, it creates more problems. There's already risk taking, there's already little common sense. So Leo, I really hope y'all can get it together and y'all have some sense. But look, I don't know, everyone's grown, but good luck, Leo. Alrighty, now for Virgo, K2 is in the 1st house, and so we can see a lot of forms of self-expression, talking our ideas. How we feel about things is very important. The funny thing is K2 is linked usually to Scorpio, and so we have the 3rd house lord in the 1st house, so our mouths are a lot more vicious than normal, and most of the time Virgo's mouths are very vicious by default. Okay, but we may also have some taboo forms of self-expression, whether people accept them, whether people approve of them or not, who knows. Maybe people find it endearing and they find it arousing, who knows. Okay, now we also still have for you your 1st house lord in the 11th. For Virgo, you may start risk taking yourself. You may end up becoming a victim of your own circumstances that can lead you to more danger. It's very uncommon for most Virgos to be just outright just dumb, but having some good judgment and common sense is good. You care more about people's opinions lately, so it's good to have friends and older siblings to shape your opinion, or at least it's important that the friends and older siblings shape your personality. Let me put it like that. I would tell you can't really choose your older siblings, but we can choose our friends in the groups that we run with more specificity. So that's what I would give you that advice. You can also be attracted to humanitarianism, serving some type of organization, helping others, leading the way. People feel like they can depend on you to like show up and show out and really have things on lock. We also see that the subconscious and secrets are more prevalent now, like we talked about in the last new moon, it being in Gemini. We also see too, because the moon has a reception with the 11th and 4th house, friends spend a lot of time at your house. They visit often, you visit them often as well. Comfort and communal living could be a thing. Maybe you want to be close with your friends. Maybe you want to live in a home provided by the government, or your home ends up being provided by the government. We also see that our hopes and dreams and wishes is home ownership, is having estates and legacies. We also see a lot of times for Virgos, they can end up working in real estate or some type of thing going into home ownership, something where property is being sold these days. Usually this placement can indicate that you feel like a parent is your friend, or you're very close with your mom or your parent these days, and maybe you feel like they're pushing you to achieve your goals, or they have pushed you to achieve your goals. You're always welcome to stay at a friend's place. They either always stay the night with you. I also noticed too that early education also helped to shape your priorities, and maybe that helped you to become more goal oriented. We also see a lot of themes around adopted kids, step kids. I'll say at the worst, if you don't have any of these things with like blended families with adopted kids, step kids, I also noticed that life is just more hectic these days. Life is more busy these days. We understand here that Virgo will enjoy extravagance in life. They're happy, they're close to their family, and they can have a successful career. There can be a lot of integrity now. There can be success with children, mostly your children, wealth, ambition, being able to reach your goal by way of hard work, being the head of your own business. Overall, it looks really, really, really good for Virgo. But again, like I said, the risk taking, the lack of common sense is another thing. This full moon centers around your 4th house. And so it centers around home, family, and relocation, and your needs for security. This may also be linked to your childhood, your mom, and we see that our career is almost opposing or making a versus or like some type of tension with our home life. Okay, so let's talk about the essence of the 11th and the essence of the 4th. So the 11th and the 11th and the 4th and the 4th. So what happens when they're there? Again, being very determined to reach your goals. For some people, they may have issues where they're drifting through life. They may lack ambition. But overall, you're lucky. Things go really well. You're often able to attract the things that you need in life, and you can be quite successful. Things just go well for you, which is a blessing. Also, friends play a very important role in your life, and you may identify strongly with them. You're very social, philanthropic. You may even contribute to a good cause that you feel like would be, really good. Now, depending on your own personal chart will determine what type of friends these are, but your friends may be controversial or unusual at this time. So that really depends, Virgo, on your own personal thing, but you may be attracted to troublemakers at this time. That's your business. You may have dreams or aims to be a troublemaker. Again, your business. We also see that the 4th is in the 4th, so your home will also play an important role in your life always. It doesn't matter where you put your home, where you build your home, where you call home. It's always important. Also, that depending on like what is involved, the attitudes toward your home will be heavily linked to childhood. So whether your childhood is good or bad, really determines a lot. Usually a parent plays an important role in the native's life. In this case, it will be Virgo. And maybe you can be very successful in the place or the location of your birth. Okay, during this transit, they may see some forms of success here. Okay, remember, common sense, Virgo, and good luck. Alrighty, now for my Libras, the first is in your 8th. You could go back and listen to excuse me. You can go back and listen to Venus being in Taurus, but there's a strong interest in 8th house matters, dealing with the sex, the occult, medicine. It could be charisma, overall just sex appeal. But being good at math, being good at money, there's a reserved nature, a strong character, someone who's honest, clear thinking, sharp wit. There's a lot of seriousness that attracts you now. Maybe we're seeking people with the same moral and ethic or laws as we are. Maybe we're talking to people about ethics and laws. Your career could be linked to communication, self-expression. Your ideas and attitudes are also important to you now, so you don't want to portray or express yourself by way of other people's viewpoints. Your career is also linked to your relatives or your community. Now here, you may want to even express your ideas on a stage in the public where people can see you, because we need this type of ego satisfaction that comes from being out in the public. You can also be known for, give me a second, I'm turning the page. We can also be known for something you say and write, and you'll also be known for more for what you say and write versus than anything that you do. It doesn't matter what you do for a living. It's just that people remember what you said and they remember what you wrote. Now, the other thing is, for Libras, you may be unfortunately attention seeking. We may have a lot to say, but when it's time to say it or interact with people, we may choke. Okay, so we have to be careful with all this attention seeking. It might be in a little bit of an embarrassing time for you. Okay, this is also good for sales. So if anybody is in sales, Libra, that will be good for you. Also, the 3rd house is activated at this time for this full moon. And so this can be unfavorable for travel, unfavorable for being in close proximity or interacting with in-laws, issues with education, siblings, neighbors, meals, your desires, art, your aims in life. Be cautious about what is written and what is said. It can easily be misinterpreted now, Libra. Or it's just not well received. Legal matters can be stalled, and there can be a lot of emotional thinking, and it's really hard to tell if things make sense or they don't make sense at all. We also see that you can be frugal. Siblings are successful if you have any. There can be good communication skills and an artistic nature. That's probably also why people don't really understand what you're saying or why you're saying, because in general they think that you have good communication. So I don't understand why you're choking this hard. You typically be on it. Like, what is this? Okay. Now the other thing is that you're able to conquer adversity and competitors. They can be I guess you could say good ethics. You can be well liked. There can be a career with helping people and good relationships with your moms in general. Even if it's just for this little transit, there's just a couple of weeks, you can have a good relationship with your mom. Now let's talk about the focus of the 3rd and the 10th house. So here again with the 3rd and the 3rd, because you're like the second person who has the 3rd and 3rd. We find that self-expression is so important, and you're never without words. You could also be really great at writing. You are very assertive in expressing your opinions and beliefs, but again, having to learn self-control and the tendency to be overly outspoken and opinionated. There's also a good sense of direction in life, but like I said, you're never at a loss for words. So we have to be careful that our opinions and our thoughts aren't infringing on other people's form of self-expression too, especially since we can easily be misunderstood at this time, Libra. So when we're having conversations, it's best to keep things simple and be very direct. Also, you should consider if your opinion is even appropriate to be even uttered. If a situation is not about you, I would really, really advise you to just be quiet and mind your business. Be quiet and mind your business. It has nothing to do with you. The event is not even about you. Just mind your business. Okay. There will be transits where you can talk. This ain't even gonna last always, but just talk later. Okay. This is not it. And they're not, even if you're not trying to be like mean or whatever, they're still going to probably articulate it that way anyway. So just it's not worth it. Peace is sometimes important. Sometimes peace is more important than anything. A lot of your time also can revolve around trying to prove yourselves to others that you are somebody, that you count, that you achieve something in life. Like, it's, I guess, was when people call dick measuring contests, or like when people talk about like machismo, or like trying to like really like prove that, or when people are like, he's that girl, that guy. It's kind of like that energy a little bit. You want to prove something to somebody, and this motivation makes you different from other people, because a lot of people don't feel that way. They might not feel like they have anything to prove. The other thing is that your parents may have added or like gave you some guidance or help in your career. Okay. The other thing is maybe you follow in the footsteps of your parents. Maybe you took over the family business. I don't know. The other thing is, for some people who have like absentee parents, or their chart dictates that they're going to have struggles with their parents. Maybe the parents, particularly the ones that they struggle the most with, maybe they feel like they have to prove something like, I don't need that parent. I can do better, or I can provide better than that parent ever could. It really, really depends. It really depends. That usually is a chart for people whose parents, they have issues with them, or they maybe have their byproduct of divorce, whatever. But they have a lot to prove, and for whatever reason, Libra, you have a lot to prove. You're misunderstood, and it's just a lot going on. But good luck, Libra. Alrighty, now onto my Scorpios. Now, for my Scorpios, you guys have Lilith in the first, and so you all are self motivated and you want to be the masters of your own plans. You really are thriving on trying to get recognition, but not too much because we don't want to unintentionally move into scandal because it's very easy to do that now by being very, very ruthless. We have to understand, Scorpio, how to have a proper or healthy home life and home security. And so we're not unintentionally going out into the public looking for attention seeking, and being ruthless, and then that causes scandal. Okay, like we still have the transit where we can get a lot of support from the public, from partners, and selling things to the public, so that's always good. Now let's go deeper into this transit. So here, Scorpios want to put their money where their mouth is. Their philosophies are materialistic, or they will use their income to back their theories and concepts. Maybe people earn a living by way of travel, foreign commerce, teaching, and religion. Maybe they travel under the concept or the travel under the, I think it's like what, precept? Whatever. A business, and their business expenses will be usually reimbursed or written off in like some tax deduction or something like that. Philosophy, religion, and ideals are also linked to your values at this time. Higher education may be necessary for you to take the next step and take advantage of your resources. You may earn by way of publishing, teaching in a college, working in a library, spreading your religion. Long travel can play a role in the way you earn money or changes your values. This can be good for foreign trade and money. Self-worth can also help can be helped by way of in-laws. So the people that you have, your husband's family, your wife's family, they can actually boost your self-esteem at this time, Scorpio. Or hindered, because for some of y'all have charts where you was never going to get along with your in-laws to begin with. So but for some people, this can really take a strong impact on your self-esteem. If you are the latter person, like hindered, you need to guard against that. Okay. You need to guard against that because there just needs to be space. But this can be really good, for people who have very supportive families and in-laws and all that stuff. This can be a very positive time for you. Now here, this is occurring in your second house, and your security is linked to money, and it's also linked to values. It's also linked to your immediate family and your voice. I would tell you to be conscious of your spending and the words that you say. You may experience delays in expenses and income. Use this transit for financial planning, Scorpio. Now we also see that you can be more talkative, a lover of good food, earn a good living at that. Eloquent speech or speaking styles. Maybe you are more attractive than usual, or you just getting cuter by the day. I don't know, Scorpio. But there can also be a lot of prosperity, success in your career, good relationship with the father and kids, and just an overall generous nature with the interest in religion and philosophy. Now let's talk about the core issues of the second, and the ninth. So the ninth can make you an overall lawbreaker, Scorpios. You really want to do your own thing, and you might not be working well with others. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now the second, for that one, your security is also linked to your talents and resources, but you really need to realize that money doesn't solve all things, and you really need to understand what your values are so you can earn money through your own efforts, it'll be easier for you to do at this time. Okay, because you're also going to understand money better and in a more realistic way. But yeah, understand that money doesn't solve everything, and you may be tempted to break out the rules, try something different. Hopefully nothing too crazy, but good luck, Scorpios. Alrighty, now for my Sagittarius, the moon is in the first house, and so we have the 8th house lord in the first, and so you like to show the world how you feel about 8th house matters. You want to demonstrate occultic knowledge. You almost have like this built-in sex appeal, magnetic nature, charisma. You may kind of flaunt your sexuality to the world, maybe, I don't know, depends on the Sag, and you want to talk about death a lot. But it's not like out of the thing of like we're nervous and we're fearful of death or whatever, but it's more so, a deep-seated interest in trying to understand the mysteries of life, and it might borderline on obsessive. Now, you are also looking for a partner that shares your ideology and the same backgrounds, and someone that can help shape your views at this time. You're also very similar to Libra in the sense that again, you have a strong character, you're honest, and you have clear thinking, and you can be very, have a sharp wit, very slick mouth, and a very serious nature right now. Now, what I also see too is that this full moon happens in your first, so your emotional satisfaction comes from mutual supportive relationships, and some of these relationships either end or not, and maybe the ending comes by way of the relationships not meeting your needs, or maybe your relationships were unrealistic from the start and this is why they don't survive. This isn't a good time for negotiations, big discussions. Like, if we talking about serious things, don't do that. But we see an overall lack of cooperation. Right now we can be attractive, have a strong, like I said, strong character. We can have luck with children, have a religious mind, intelligent, and strong contentment. Now, emotionally, we may feel like we have little willpower. We feel like we're weak. We have a weak health. Or maybe we remember times we were very sick as children. We can be smart, but again, we show up with issues with our mom, or overall just lack confidence at this time, which also can take a strong beating for our relationships. So let's look at the first and the 8th. So the first and the first, you're very self-motivated. You're centered around yourself. You care about your own ideas, everything that's going on with you, your appearance, your grooming. You want to look good. You want to smell good, etc. Now, we may slide into egotism if we're not careful, but we're centered and we're focused on ourselves. Now, if we go back to 8 and the 8th, these is a little bit tricky because they can make some hard angles to the first house or from its proximity from the 8th house. But again, having a strong form of sex appeal, we have strange things that usually happen at this time, but a lot of times people can be overwhelmed by their own sex appeal, their own charisma, that they may even just not want to deal with it at all. They may become celibate. They may become like, I don't know, maybe feel like they're asexual. The other thing is having to deal with other people's power, taxes, and debts. And so this might be a good time to check back in taxes, check back in debts. And maybe that because your first house is more fortified now, maybe we feel like we can actually attack obstacles that we're dealing with, shared resources, with debt, with taxes, maybe even the idea of death, or obstacles that we feel in our own sexuality. You might feel overwhelmed, you might not. But these will be some things that we overcome or we think about because we feel more like ourselves these days. So maybe whatever type of issues we had with these themes and obstacles and mental strain and mental confusion, maybe they clear away and we get a clear picture of what we want out of life. Okay, good luck, Sag. Alrighty, now for my Capricorn rising. So here, no matter how happy you are, you always need space for yourself. You don't care how good the relationship's going. You don't care. You don't want to be bothered. And maybe you have even doubt or suspicion with your partner's actions and needs. So I don't know. Capricorn's looking kind of weird. You need to learn to handle questions in your mind and your commitment, and things become easier if you let doubt win. Your relationship will suffer. Every relationship you own will suffer. I think also you need to realize that maybe you may be the backup person in your relationship, and maybe that's also why the suspicion is coming out to begin with. Maybe you see yourself as the power behind the throne, or a person that's dependable and a strong sounding board in your relationship. I don't know your dynamic, so I can't say if you're the pillar in the relationship, the rock of Gibraltar. I don't know. I can't say if you're being used to clean up everyone's messes, Capricorn. I don't know. That really depends. Now, you being paranoid and suspicious of everything, something has to give and take, okay? Sometimes more than one thing can be true at the same time. Maybe people putting too much burdens on you, but maybe you're also acting a little off, okay? Now, the other thing is, because this is a 12 7th house relationship, partners are very key to you understanding yourself and facing your needs honestly. The strength really depends on what planets you have involved. For some people, they may start running through people to get to the bottom line of whatever they're hiding from in their form of self-discovery. I don't know. That's up to y'all, Capricorn. Some people committed, some people outside this summer. But the real issue that we talking about is the fact that relationships help uncover a level of your subconscious. And so, yes, we could be running through people, but we need to understand why we're running from people, what we're looking for in a relationship, and what am I maybe suppressing? Maybe what am I trying to use people to avoid in myself? Because that's what it is. You're using people to avoid yourself. So you're merging with all of these people, but we still not good with us. And at the end of the day, they're going to end. And when you close your eyes by yourself in the bed. So we can do all this humping and hunching on everybody, but that doesn't mean you understand yourself and you know what you want. Also, I would say this too. We should not put how well we understand ourselves too much in the hands of other people. And I mean, to the certain extent, you already have a placement where you learn about yourself by way of people because you've been running and suppressing. But hear me, because you have been doing all of this, you know, and you don't know yourself, that can also put you in a dangerous situation in proximity to relationships. Relationships can be very dangerous if ill managed. Most people understand how wild relationships can be and how it can really cost you stuff and how they can be very painful. You know, most people can. You know, you look up Reddit, you know, you go to the OG stuff, Jerry, Maury, all of this stuff, you know, people cheating, side babies, diseases, you know, psychological strain. It all costs something. You want to get a divorce, it's financial strain. We don't want to have to go through all of this relationship drama, Tyler Perry nonsense to be like, oh, after 50 marriages, I finally got it. That's crazy. That's crazy. I got like 3 alimonies coming out my check. Like, that's crazy. So I want the Capricorns to not be so hard as a brick that we're avoiding whatever is going on with us on a subconscious level, and we're just running through people to try to obtain either the information, or we're running through people to avoid what's going on with us. All right. Now we can be more lethargic. We also have a tendency to antagonize others. There can be issues with communicating. We can be a loner. There can be issues in relationships. Now, you will work for other people during this time where there's a propensity to work for other people. These people can be very romantic, passionate, maybe beautiful, have a beautiful spirit at this time. There can be money by way of partnerships. Maybe we're married to more than one person or in more than one partnership, like we talked about before. But maybe the partnerships and the marriages are successful. Again, that really depends, you know, and that really depends on what you learn from these relationships and partnerships. You know, be warned, Capricorn. But here the moon happens, and this full moon happens in your 12th house. So there can be rumors, gossip, hidden matters, secrets, and secret enemies come up at this time. Watch out for medications and chemicals. Learn to rest and relax. This also can have themes around someone ill and not feeling well. And we also can have demanding people try to put their duties onto you. Use your intuition, use your subconscious. This is why it's also important to understand yourself and your subconscious triggers and desires, because if you don't, the same place that gives you intuition is the same place that can give us secret enemies, and it can give us people trying to put on burdens and unnecessary things onto us. So if we keep running from tapping into our subconscious urges and our self-trust and that gut instinct, we're going to keep running into the same problem. So it doesn't really matter. Okay. So let's talk about the 12th and the 12th and the 7th and the 7th. Okay, so here with the 12th and the 12th, there is a very, very innate strength here. You're very strong, and you may not understand your subconscious urges, which we talked about earlier, which is like how to double down on it. But if anytime you're in need, you get it. You understand exactly what you need to do. You may also be inspired by your subconscious. So if we stop running, our own subconscious can give us information that we need. Our own inner self can give us the information that we need, and it may take us to the next level. And then we also have the 7th and the 7th. So here you really identify with your partnership, and you can seek an enduring or meaningful relationship. But the other thing is that, like we said, we can go from one person to the next trying to seek personal gratification, and it's not necessarily quality people. We're just jumping on anyone at this point. There's also a need for public approval and validation. So you go into the public on some need, so you're either a leader or something, but there's all this people pleasing, and you need people to like you. It's too much. Okay, good luck, Capricorn. So for my Aquariuses, you still have Pluto in the 1st house. And so this is going to deal with getting a lot of limelight, working hard and gaining through your own efforts. You may have some ego. You may be smelling yourself. But communication and your ideas are important. You can have firm beliefs now. You can travel. You may even get caught up in the affairs of your siblings, or you may start a business with him or her or them, or you may be responsible for them. There may be delays and challenges in education. You may be a reader. You may be funny now, and there's just an overall lightheartedness to you, which I like. All right. So you still have this thing where you want to get with somebody, you're going to be a romance, you're going to marry them, but there may be difficulties. So keep that in mind. You also may work with friends or make friends at work. If you have too many hard aspects here, you may be a loner, and there may be little friends, and you choose animals as your friends. If you're choosing animals as your friends, then you probably have something hard going here. Not saying this is a bad thing or a good thing. I'm just saying when people have hard placements, malefics, that distorts if they're gonna how the planet is going to behave. Overall, you can be very active in group activities, and you can be seen as a community leader. There's a selfless giving nature of yourself, services. This is great for charity. You may even be unpaid. You may work for the government, be a civil servant. You may even work for a restaurant, maybe as a bartender or a waitress. Now, this occurs in your 11th house, Aquarius. And so here we have it where friendships may ask too much of you or favors. They wearing you down. They are wearing you down. They got you doing everything. They got you doing a community car wash. They got you braiding Jalika's hair this weekend. They got you doing the food drive. They got you over there doing a stop the violence protest. You doing a lot, Aquarius, but sometimes we got to say no. Okay, sometimes people have to pull their own weights. Okay, now this comes up with clashes with friends, groups, maybe the internet. You can have clashes with older siblings, romantic partners, and overall our responsibilities seem overwhelming. It's probably because you ain't getting paid for nothing, but I'm gonna leave that alone. But you right now have issues possibly with the mother, and maybe that is why we're working for free. Maybe we're hoping that by way of working for free or little to no things and taking all this responsibility, maybe we get the approval that we're looking for. The other thing is, maybe we're used to doing that. Maybe we unfortunately had unnecessary or inappropriate responsibilities put on us from our mothers or families. You can also have issues with coworkers at this time. You can have stomach problems. You can maybe be in a service profession. You can be wealthy or have some type of luck. You can initiate projects and work very diligently to fulfill your goals. There are a lot of opportunities for you now, and you support your friends, and you can have supportive friends as well. And this is overall a good indicator for health. Now let's talk about the 6th, and let's talk about the 11th. Okay, so the 11th and the 11th. Here we see that you are very determined to reach your goals. Maybe you become more dreamy, and you kind of like avoid your ambitions, and that's if you have really hard aspect. But again, you're very lucky. Life smiles on you. Basically definitely one of God's favorites. Okay, very attracted to the arts, where there's music, painting, etc. We also see friends playing a very important role in your life, and maybe you identify strongly with them. That's probably why you take it to heart when they're trying to like put all this pressure on you. You don't have to do all of that, you know. Everyone is grown. You also more social and philanthropic now. Basically people always know that they can call on you to do something financially, material wise, etc. The other thing is, depending if you have hard aspects, you may be attracted to controversial friendships or friends with people that have a lot of controversy, or they're just unusual all around. Okay, but yeah, that's people just know that they can depend on you, and they feel like they can always, like, I don't know, lay something at your door. That's a slippery slope, because you know we don't want to start getting into using. This also, the other part of this with the 6 and the 6 also deals with you being a workaholic. You know, you're a hard worker. But there could be some issues, because too much working may not be the best, because we can fall into poor health patterns. We can be unreliable here. We can be a loner or get sick very often. The other thing is we can be a pet lover. We can see a lot of pets and animals come up with this thing. Actually, that's my favorite thing about y'all, Aquarius, is that y'all have this whole animal vibe going on. I think it's very sweet. But I actually am more worried about the humans than the animals, because I want you guys to be careful that we're not getting caught up into becoming workaholics and unpaid labor for people, because we have issues getting along with people. We heavily identify with our friendships, and you know, we want people to like us, and you know, and I'll say the same thing I told, you know, another placement in here that when I did this. Health a lot of times can be recovered. You know, we take care of ourselves, we rest, we can be back at 1,000. But there's sometimes we go too far with our health, and we abuse our body so bad it does not go back. Okay, and so although we can have support from our friends have to understand that we can't do all things, and we have to take care of ourselves sometimes. We have to pour and give into ourselves. It's unrealistic. All right. Good luck, Aquarius. Alrighty, now for my Pisces, you are really taking the reins. You're more introspective now. You're choosing your own values. It may be unorthodox. You all about that money talk, and you may be, you know, thinking about your financial upbringing. Now here, Jupiter has moved. Your first house lord has moved into Cancer, and so you're more creative. You're more fun-loving, generous, dramatic, very open but theatrical. You are overall an emotional and social whirlwind. You're adventurous now. You might be into sports. You're daring. There's themes around children and romance. Depending on your aspects, your love life and your finances go smoothly, or they can be ups and downs. Now, if there are ups and downs, then you might have some tension in your natal chart. Depending how hard the ups and downs in relationships and with money would depend on how hard the tension is. Y'all get it? So anytime I say hard aspects and soft, like based off of your chart, if you really feeling like it's really, really hard, then you really got something hard there. If it's just like, I'm just a little, but we got through it, then it's not that hard. Okay. So we also see that you can get recognition for something creative, artistic, musical, acting. There's an overall need for spotlight. You want and you crave acknowledgement, no matter what type of career you have. Kids also can become very famous. Now, there can be issues in love. There can be issues in love, or the issues in love become very public, or they can bring these long struggles before we can finally get that recognition. We can finally pop into our career field or whatever we want recognition for. You want people to know that, hey, I'm Angelica, I'm very talented, you know, I'm good at this. We really need that validation now. We also see that there's an attachment to theaters, movies, and trying to bring creativity and art into any type of career field. Oftentimes when I see this placement, these people are either very popular or famous, or they have some type of notoriety just bubble up out of nowhere, because this is a transit. But we also see maybe our children can get some type of renown. Our children can become famous. They kind of get some type of spotlight. A hobby is also a career at this point. So if you want to start something right now, kind of short notice, but maybe our hobby could be also what we could be known for as a career, and we can kind of do it pretty good. We also can be good at sports. Now, for Pisces, the 10th house is important, and it's where we having this. Work satisfaction is important. We may see job changes, more responsibilities, maybe from parents, from the government, from kids, maybe anything that we have created. Also, responsibilities from social events. We see a similar theme that we saw in before with a career versus home. These can bring conflicts. This is conflicts also in rentals and home ownership. We also see that Pisces is more ambitious now in their career success, and they may be able to obtain it. They have a good reputation, and they're well respected because they're fair-minded and they're a great leader. This is also good for education, law, and government interests. And you might just be interested in just what's going on with all of this drama in the government lately, but for whatever reason, it captures Pisces' attentions now in this transit. Now, Pisces can also be happy by way of their children. They're smart, they love sports and art, and they're very passionate. They can be even more romantic than usual, and they can have a position in government and a corporation. So let's talk about the 10th and the 10th, and let's talk about the 5th and the 5th. So 10th and the 10th, something unusual happens here. You kind of have a similar thing that I had talked to Libra about. Here you kind of, it's very important for you to really prove who you are. You want to be somebody, and you want to count, and you want to achieve, and you want to prove to the world that, yeah, I did that. I'm that girl. I'm that guy. It's a very interesting. It's an unusual motive. Not saying people don't want to accomplish, but there's a strong need to prove that I got out the mud. I was that person. You know, that's very important to you. We also see that one of your parents creates a strong type of guidance or help for your career. You could also be in a situation where you want to follow the footsteps of your parents. Now, on the off chance that you have placements with your parents, you don't get along very well with them, off chance, there can be a strong indicator where you try to prove to your parents that you don't need them and I was good all along, etc., etc. That's probably where all those feelings of trying to prove to the world that you're really that girl and that somebody. So you probably want to get to the bottom of those feelings, because I'll be real, most people don't care. But I do think it's good that we have our desires, our aims, and what we want to achieve, but I think we have to also question where it come from. So if it comes from a place that you never felt good enough, and we want to just prove to random people that we don't know that we're somebody, in efforts to prove also to our parents that we're somebody, Pisces, because you, particularly for Pisces, because you have psychological placements these days. If you were important, this is where we have to lean into reality. If you were important, you would have been important to that person, because people make time for what they make time for. Even if it's just to explain why they're struggling to make time, you still make time to try to clarify whatever, because a lot of times Pisces people, particularly Pisces sons, and I'm gonna say Pisces moon, sometimes their moms and dads can be off the hook, MIA, they struggling with their health, whatever the case may be, whether it's like physical health, mental health. Sometimes I'm seeing them have they work with water, they might work with medications, drugs, or might be even on them. Whatever the case may be, like when someone cares about you, they want to make the effort, they will do that. I don't want y'all to internalize like, yeah, I'm that somebody, I won, in efforts to prove like to your parents or to like an authority figure that for whatever reason that didn't happen. Maybe they didn't feel like you was worth time. Maybe they felt too much shame and guilt. I don't know, but it wasn't a priority at the time. Even if it was shame and guilt, that still their feelings overwhelmed the priority of having the appropriate conversations with you about, I'm sorry, I should have been there more for you than I was, and you didn't deserve that. Is that going to take away the pain of them not being there? No, because time is the most precious thing on earth. No, that is not something that could be replicated. You can't replicate time. You damage something, most of the time you can buy a new one. Most things. But you can't replicate time. So I want y'all to, like, for my Pisces, because you have psychological placements where we have to understand our subconscious urges, you guys really need to understand why you need to feel like you're first. You really that person that got out the mud, all this other stuff. Is it really because, you know, maybe we didn't get the love and support that we needed at the time? People didn't show up. We need to prove to these people that didn't show up for us that should have. I'm not talking about random strangers, that people who we have a relationship with and they should have shown up, but they did not, for whatever reason. That we're important, that we matter. Yeah. Now the other thing is you have 5th and the 5th, and so you have to be, right now you really could be a creative genius in the arts, in music, in performing. It's really sometimes hard to pick a field, but you are socially oriented and you really need the approval that you get from being on the stage. Children will have a definite importance to you. Either they're very important, you want to do something with children, or you are very sure that you don't want children at all. But the answer is very, very short. You may also be attracted to risky pursuits like gambling. You may gamble more than your money. You may gamble your emotions and even your health. Okay? So, be careful and good luck, my Pisces. I am praying for y'all and whatever y'all going through right now. But this is the end of the reading for the full moon in Cancer. Okay, guys? Y'all be safe and bye.